Hey friends, it's Sarah Rittendale. When I decided to act against all the toxic thoughts and feelings I was living with daily and try to become my best self, I quickly fell into the very common trap of perfectionism. So, I decided to create a space where wellness doesn't mean being flawless. Becoming the best version of yourself doesn't just come from conversations about managing your mean mind, learning confidence, and always doing the things that you're supposed to do. Here, we talk about how normal your toxic feelings and thoughts are, that you're not doing something wrong because you don't always feel, think, or act how you envision your best self to, how to implement self-improvement strategies in a realistic way, and we do this through a variety of topics that often prompt our best selves to crave emergence. My mission? Inspire you to recognize that you don't have to be perfect to consider yourself whole, healthy, and well. This is the Well-ish podcast. Hey guys, welcome back to Well-ish, where we tackle wellness without the pressure of perfection. Today, we are really doing that as we dive into the concept of toxic productivity, the constant push to always be doing more, achieving more, and never truly resting. This mindset can be fueled by intense motivational speakers or the curated perfection we see on social media, where it feels like everyone else is living their best, most productive life 24/7. It tricks us into believing that unless we're in constant go mode, we're somehow failing. Joining me today is a very special guest, my fiancé, Frank Carl. Recently, we've been having a lot of conversations about unlearning toxic productivity, and I wanted to bring him on because we're at different stages in this journey. I've spent some time actively unlearning these habits, and while they don't affect me as often anymore, Frank is still in these early stages. He's gaining awareness, but sometimes finds himself falling back into that hustle mentality. It's a unique perspective because he's in that space where the old beliefs still linger, but he's starting to recognize their toxicity and is actively working to move past them. So we'll explore how this mindset impacts not only work and financial success, but the way social media quietly pushes us to apply unrealistic wellness goals to our everyday lives. And I want to encourage you to really apply this to multiple areas of your life, or however you can fit it into whatever facet of your life you feel it makes the most sense. Frank and I talk a lot about work and we talk a lot about financial success, but it really is, and I wish that I had, talked about this more in my part of speaking, is that, I did this a lot for all of it. I did this for making sure I was doing all of the wellness girly things. And it's not just relevant to work. It's relevant to anywhere that you're pushing yourself to do better at a toxic amount. You're convincing yourself that you're doing right by you, but it's really deteriorating your self-worth, and it's deteriorating the way that you view and feel about yourself. It's just also about these moments when you're scrolling through Instagram and feel like you're not doing enough because you don't meditate every morning, run a 5K and drink a perfectly crafted green smoothie, drink a cute little tea, whatever it is. It's this belief that if you're not checking off every self-improvement box, you are somehow lazy or falling behind. And these expectations creep in when we're just innocently scrolling, making us believe we need to live perfectly optimized lives to achieve happiness. Like, think about any time I go on Pinterest as my social media break from social media. I want to scroll on something, but I don't want to feel whatever way social media is going to make me feel, or Instagram or TikTok is going to make me feel, so I'll go on Pinterest. But Pinterest does the same thing, that it creates this image of a perfect life, and you try to match up your life to whatever post you see on there. So it makes you, like I said, believe that you need to live perfectly optimized lives to achieve happiness, or to achieve your best self, or to get to this place that you feel like you're good enough finally. But that perfection does not exist. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Before I get into it, please, please, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Your support really helps me bring more episodes that dive into balancing real life self-improvement with grace, avoiding the trap of perfection, and embracing wellness that works for you as an individual. This episode is all about breaking those harmful narratives and finding balance. So grab a tea, a coffee, a cocktail, whatever feels right, and let's get into it. Hi, Frank. Welcome to Wellish.
Hey.
Again. So we're talking about something that you and I have been talking about recently, the toxic productivity. It's something I've struggled with for a really long time, and while I've made a lot of progress in unlearning it, Frank here is still in the early stages of that journey. We've been having some, like I said, really great conversations about it. And so I wanted to share them with you guys because I think that it's not something that is brought to light in a way that could actually be helpful, because it feels like you're helping yourself and you're doing right by yourself, but you're actually causing yourself more harm by having that toxic productivity mindset.
I would agree with that for sure.
So for those who may not be familiar, toxic productivity is the constant need to be productive at all times, often at the expense of your health, your relationships, and your overall well-being. It's the feeling that you're never doing enough, even when you are completely burnt out. So I want to start by talking about recognizing the toxic positivity. So I thought it'd be helpful if you and I kind of shared our individual personal stories with it, like how we first realized we were caught in this cycle of toxic productivity. So, like, I know I can definitely share when I realized it, but, like, how about you? Because I know you're kind of, like, still in denial.
I wouldn't say I'm in denial still. I'm in the realization phase, I think, and realizing what I can do to be not toxic with my actions on a day-to-day basis.
Well, so tell me about, like, walk me through you and your mentality. Like, I know that you are a very extreme person. You have a lot of ambitions. Like, tell me about, like, an older version of you to, like, starting to get to where you are now.
Like a younger me, you mean?
Yeah, and, like, what your goals are, like, what you're trying to make happen for yourself.
Yeah, so simply said, I want to be like a business owner. I'm, striving to be an insurance agent. Like I know I'll get there. And I have like the roadmap to get there. But that's where the toxic productivity comes from, is realizing that I was my own roadblock or speed bump or like closed door. So a younger me, and I would say until maybe a week or two ago, it was an all or nothing, right? Like all in, all the time, no matter what, no excuses. But on top of that, with such like high emotion to be successful comes those lulls that are just as extreme as the highs. You know what I mean? So a younger me could be turned on 100% of the time without a doubt, because I mean, what real responsibility did we have? Mm-hmm. Like I'm going back to even like, say, let's just call it high school. Mm-hmm. I was told where I had to be, told what I had to do, and had minimal time for myself, right? Because we're children, and I was an athlete, and I was, I had really good grades, like honor roll, AP classes. I mean, transition into college, it was dean's list every semester from the first semester I started until I was done. Is that with limited focus on like creating activity for myself, it was easy to always be on because I knew when I could turn off. Meaning like, I had to go to class, right? I had to pay attention because my style of learning was sitting there, paying attention, listening, and conversing with my teacher or my professor. And that is how I learned. So if I was disengaged or taking notes, I was distracted. So I knew I just had to like be on in that moment. And as soon as I was out of that class, whole different person came out. Mm-hmm. Like I still had intention. I knew where I needed to be, but with that structure of having, your school years, I was allowed to really turn on and turn off on like the drop of a dime, versus now an older me, a more current time me, I don't know when to turn on and when to turn off outside of work, right? Or even the gym has kind of taken a little bit of negative turns here and there because like I just assume I'm always on. I go to work and I'm on. And then it's, we're adults now trying to clean a house, try to cook food, go grocery shopping, pay our bills. It's like I feel the toxic productivity that I've faced is like, as long as I'm doing something, I'm putting myself on the right path to move forward, which is entirely wrong.
Yeah. Right. Well, and I think I like your point too about like the school versus real life, because I think that like that's a thing that I wasn't made as aware of as I would have liked to have been, that once you enter, like you have your whole fucking life structured for you, whether it's your parents or school or like sports, everything is laid out for you, where when you enter the adult world, you have to do all the structuring yourself, and you're not aware of that. You're not aware of that difference. So then you get into adult life and you're like, what the fuck? I have to do everything to make my life like good and happy and to get these like aspirations that you're trying to achieve, because you enter adult life and you think, okay, now I have to, we're groomed with capitalism. I have to get in there and I have to work and I have to make all the money that I can make. Otherwise, I'm not going to live a life that I want to live. And because you have the freedom of your own structure, you go fucking balls to the wall trying to get as much done as possible, that it turns into like this toxic positivity. My experience with it was really like the voice in my head, like that, like exactly what I was kind of just describing. That it would look a lot like I would say, I'm telling myself that what I'm saying in my head is for my benefit. I have to work harder. You're lazy. Get up. You're not doing enough. You have to wake up earlier. You have to go to the gym. You have to get all of this shit done in the day. You can't take breaks. That's what working hard is. And I think a lot of that mentality came from listening to those intense speakers that I still like, and you and I both like E.T. and Andy Frisella, and the problem is that stuff that they say is true, it's real, but it's being able to, I'm going to plug it, do it with like a wellish mentality that like it's not 100% of the time go hard, because it's just that like you're doing something and that's you working hard at something, is at least my perception of it. But I think the recognizing it really came from a place of like I was constantly burnt out. I didn't like anything that I did. I had bad relationships with like you. Like I felt like I didn't, not that you and I ever had a bad relationship, but that I wasn't like paying attention to you as much as I should have been. And like you would say stuff like that to me, like that, like Wellish came first and that, I had to do that and over where like you should be the number one priority.
Well, hold on. I don't want to say that, because like your dreams, your goals, they should be a priority, because I will only benefit from that as well. So I just want to preface, it was 100% of the time I was always third or fourth even.
Right.
And it was like you never allowed...
It's like I didn't have the space in my brain to focus on other relationships.
You didn't have structure on what you were focusing on. And you tried to always focus on the same thing all the time, from waking to sleeping to probably even during dreaming.
Right.
And so like it's just knowing how to structure your day.
Right. And then not even like you, but like, I'm obviously long distance with all of my friends and family. Yeah. So like I don't FaceTime people. I forget to text people back because my brain is so filled with the other things going on in my life.
Toxic productivity.
Yeah, exactly. So,
my personal experience with that, just to kind of get it out there, right, was genuinely probably about 3 weeks ago. So, as you know, not that any of the listeners know this, but anytime I leave a job, and let me tell you, you know this, but everybody else, I've had more jobs than I could count. It genuinely takes me a couple minutes to even like remember all of them. But every time I've had a job, I've always moved up a ladder of some sort. Let that be position, let that be finance, let that be freedom, let that be influence. So what I started noticing is that I was getting lazy. Mm-hmm. But as long as I was being quote unquote productive, I was like, I'm doing my job, I'm doing everything. And then I would have like a bad month and I'm like, while I was doing this, like I could look at my calls, I could look at my quotes.
Then, like you say, you're getting lazy, and what you do is you start beating yourself up for resting. Like that's what I would do all the time. Like if I had a free moment in my day, I'd be like, there's something I should be doing. There's something I got to be doing, because I didn't feel like if I had downtime, like if I had, like I'd never read anymore. Like I love to read, and I didn't read at all for fun. I read self-improvement books, and that was the only thing, because I felt like I needed to always be working on something. Right. And if I did take time to rest for myself, like if I woke up and I didn't go to the gym, I would feel instant guilt in the morning. Or like if I, like I said, was able to sit there and not do anything, like I would have this like guilt that I felt like I needed to be working on something. And I really feel like I was equating my self-worth with the amount of output that I
Right, we're measuring, I would say both of us, and this doesn't go for everybody, but for us, we were measuring our success or our work based on effort put in.
Yeah. Well,
but the effort put in was not, for one, sustainable, and for two, measurable.
Right.
Because like we were just doing, like we fell victim of just going with the flow. Mm-hmm. Is that I was going to work with expectations but not executing. Mm-hmm. And going back to what like E.T. says, Grant Cardone says, what Andy Frisella says, Tony Robbins says, all these people are like, you got to be 100% on. But I realized the days that I was 100% on, I was very focused.
Well, and the idea that if you only have 40% to give and you give 40%,
that's what I was just about to say, is realizing, hey, you only got a little bit to give today. Give all of that little bit to put me on the right path. And then something I said to you last week was there's different versions of each of us, right? Like there's a happy me, there's a sad me, there's a highly successful me, and a highly lazy version of me. And it's realizing in those moments what person showed up today. And I have control of it. I'm not saying my mind control.
No, yeah, but I hear you.
My feelings control my mind. But it's knowing how to tap into each version of yourself to give the most. So like lazy me is very, very effective at talking with customers, taking care of things they need taken care of. Because it's just like they got a problem, I got a solution, I know how to get there, right? And it doesn't bother me because it's busy work. Mm-hmm. Now, a highly successful version of me cannot fathom even touching, say, service work.
That's an interesting mentality because it plays to your strengths and weaknesses. Like you aren't angry and hate the lazy version of you.
Because that version of me...
Because that's what I'm like, fuck that bitch.
Yeah. Well,
and that's not good either.
Instead of giving up, I was able to find opportunities that didn't seem like a daunting task or required extra work. It was just doing what I was already doing, but being self-aware of where I was emotionally and like my energy levels.
Well, so we've talked about listening to podcast people and, you know, self-improvement people or whatever that have this mentality of like go hard. And we've talked about work and the expectations for that. And then it sounds like you and I both are, well, we know this about ourselves, that we both have like that ambition, passion kind of vibe inside of our personality. So do you think that it's more societal or personal expectations that play a bigger role in feeding that toxic productivity?
They run parallel. I'm not going to say one is more than the other. I think societal norms shape our personal mental construct, right? Mm-hmm. And then we try to then relate it back to societal norms. And at the same time, society is what dictates our level of success to a degree financially. Because based on society, like you said earlier, capitalism, is that our success is based on our financial gain. Now, I don't want to take away, you know, love and emotions from that, because sometimes helping people is more rewarding than the money you receive.
Well, but that's the difference between, like, you know, trying to find success in simplicity compared to finding success.
Correct. But if you're going to find success there, then your overall arching goal isn't going to be financial gain.
But I just feel like toxic productivity isn't a thing when, like, I wouldn't be like, oh, I didn't love my mom hard enough today.
But
you know
that's
what
just
I mean?
because that's who you are.
But that's also because I love her hard every day.
Correct. But that's who you are. There's people in this world like civil servants, whatever job you want to call it. If they didn't help enough people in that given day, maybe they do feel like they're not doing enough.
I have this standard that I want myself to meet. And
that you set for yourself, correct?
yes.
Correct.
And so when I'm not meeting that, and it's always like whenever I set my own standard, like I don't set the bar low. So like I'm always reaching for it and never can achieve it. Like I don't take the time to appreciate, well, I shouldn't say I do, because I do now, but I used to never take the time to appreciate small wins and set small goals and accomplish those small goals. Like even something as simple as creating a schedule for myself for the day. Like I'll plug in everything that I want to achieve in the day and have ChatGPT create a schedule for me for how to do that. And if I get that done, even most of it done, I feel proud of myself for doing that in that day. And like that is taking it more a step at a time. It's more living day by day. It's more enjoy the journey. And it allows me to have success and feel happy and proud of myself for small wins.
Hell yeah. Like that's what I'm saying is each person's version of this is going to be strictly individual. Because like that to me would not satisfy anything in my soul.
What would satisfy you?
So my version of that, right, is listing my priorities. Did I do enough for each of my priorities? But realizing just because I didn't do enough for 1, 2, or 3, whichever one I'm measuring at that moment, my goal, say, is that did I have of everything I had to give today for that goal, was I successful in giving 100% of what I had today? That's I would say within the last 30 days, I've realized that.
And I think a lot of that, like when I would hear people say stuff like that, I would be like, pissed because my mind didn't work that way, but it's genuinely the practice of remembering to ask yourself those questions and the awareness to say like, did I meet my goal or did I whatever? Like you have to consciously ask yourself those questions.
Well, I'm super extreme, right? It's pass fail. I don't give A, B, C, or D.
Which I do not agree with.
And you don't. But that's where your mind goes, right? Because like...
I just don't think that that's healthy. And you shouldn't be extreme. It's not all or nothing.
Well, so
which
that's
is
why...
literally the entire purpose of this podcast.
That's why we're here, though, right? But it's realizing for people like myself, it's 100% or nothing. But for me, and again, this goes for each person individually, maybe there's something to be said about how I have my own internal conversation that maybe these highly other successful people that I like to learn from have done internally and they don't share because it's not based on their platform. But I have this strong belief, we'll just use Andy because like we both are familiar with him and he's real extreme, is that I think Andy at night knows, okay, hey, XYZ was going on and it brought my energy down. But did I give 100% of what I had available to give to my goal today? Yes, I passed.
Right.
Before old me would be like, oh, fail. I don't care if I had 99% to give.
Every single day that I live is supposed to be perfect.
Right. But it's realizing not every day is going to be perfect. Like, granted, it rains some days. Those are the days that you're restarting.
Oh, God, that reminds me of something I heard. I don't remember. It was in a book, I think. But it said something along, and I've said it here on the podcast before because it was so fucking crazy, but it was something along the lines of that if a builder is building a house, they're painting a house, your conditions are going to change. Like if it's super fucking hot outside and you're here in Tampa, Florida, and trying to do something in the middle of the day, you know, you probably are going to have to take...
You're going to have to paint smaller sections faster.
Or take a break. Like you can't work at that. Or if it rains, you can't. Or if it snows, you can't. You know, you can't control those outside things.
But did you fail that day?
But that doesn't mean you failed. It just means that something happened out of your control. So you probably went to your blueprint room and worked on another project that you can work on in that kind of weather. So were you successful
that day? Did you pass that day?
Right. Yes, exactly.
It's realizing, and that's where I think toxic productivity comes into play too, is that we set these goals and we have to hit them. Otherwise the day sucked. We failed or it wasn't enough. But it's realizing that we are intelligent human beings and knowing, okay, hey, maybe we're going to use my job now as an example. Maybe my sales acumen is a little low today. So what can I do to create just as much success in my day and come back and maybe do a recharge or do something that will make my sales acumen go up the following day or the following week, whatever it may be. But it's realizing and being able to dip into these different buckets to have my success and measuring that based on my personal output, but not saying it's pass or fail if I didn't do 100%. It's realizing what I have and then measuring my success based off of that.
I want to talk about the impact of toxic productivity. What do you think how do you think that having toxic productivity has impacted your mental health?
Burnout.
Right.
And I'm not somebody that would ever identify with that.
So burnout is a real thing, but I think like, and again, this is for me personally, it's the way that like the way my self-worth diminishes, the way my self-trust diminishes, like the way that I try to make everything perfect, the more that I focus on it. Like I can't be imperfectly perfect, like all of those things. Like, and so I start to, it's like the harder I work, the more I get done, the more that I think I am convincing myself that I'll like myself and I'll like my life for working that hard. But the more I do it in that toxic way, just on, I hate myself more and more and more because nothing's ever good enough for me. And I already have an issue with never feeling good enough, like in life. So if I'm going to continue to prove to myself the ways I'm never good enough because I fail, and can't pass because I can't be perfect every single day, obviously you can see how negative and toxic and disgusting that sounds to be talking to yourself that way. And over time, day in and day out, I feel like it just, it wears on your mental health.
I'd agree with that, except I am completely opposite of you.
Okay, tell me.
Right? Like you are getting angry about that and you get worried about that, you get in your head about that, you start talking down to yourself. You know this from firsthand experience. When Frank gets in his own head, my ego inflates. I don't let other people or myself
in a bad way
talk negative about me, right? I'll start doing like maybe I'm not saying I have a drinking problem, people, but
a little bit.
But like when I get in my own head and I get angry, I suppress. But I don't talk negatively about myself. I'm like, fuck it, let's have a beer. It's noon, I'll have a beer. Fuck it, I'm gonna eat pizza today. I don't give a fuck is the rest of the day. And so like, but to me, it's building myself up, my ego. Like,
well, building your ego isn't a good thing,
right? But I don't see it as a negative thing. But what I do then is go, hey, is this what you would want for yourself tomorrow? Is this what you want your future successful self to do, to be there? No. So then it's like, okay, but so I don't feel I get negative with it. I get positive, but it's toxic positivity now. And so like I just suppress all the negative shit and don't do a self-evaluation. But that's where having that understanding of, for one, am I doing that because I don't have enough to give and it doesn't meet my minimum expectations? Yes. But now the new and improved version of me goes, hey, fucker, you only got 50% today, but make sure you get 50% today and figure out how to recharge to be more successful in a different avenue tomorrow.
Okay.
But it's not negative. It's just like, it's just me having a friendly conversation with myself.
Okay, so that's you. But I also want to point out and talk about again how the toxic productivity really fucks with your relationships in your life and how it takes a toll on just like your personal life.
Oh yeah, that goes for everything. That goes with me and you, family, and my job.
Well, so were there moments in our relationship where you felt like toxic productivity got in the way?
Fuck yes.
Like, not just because I have, like, I mean, that too, like, that you noticed it in me a lot, but, like, for yourself?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, instead of being like, yeah, hey, I just got, like, a couple more minutes or a couple more hours, or, hey, I really need to focus on this. I can't give you a clear answer on whatever you're asking. Instead of doing that, I would fucking get mad at you. I would yell. I'd be like, leave me alone.
Same.
Or even if I didn't do these extreme things, I would give you attitude. I am a highly emotional person. Mm-hmm. So I would act out towards you, and then the next 2-3 days you're upset with me.
You're describing something I have never even experienced happening.
That's funny because I've experienced it.
You think I was mad at you for a few days? Also, when do you yell at me?
That's what I'm saying. Those are extreme things, but like it would just get loud with you. I'm not trying to say I'm this piece of shit guy that's like treating you poorly, but it would be I raise my voice or I get like a snarky remark to you. And yes, maybe you wouldn't be mad at me, but you wouldn't feel fulfilled or safe. So then your form of affection towards me was less than what I wanted and expected. So then in turn, I'm still mad at you, or I'm not satisfied, or whatever it may be. Basically what I'm saying is how it affected me is that it was a compounding effect, is that I would prioritize something that wasn't actually worth my time.
Yeah.
And then 3-4 days later, I would come full circle and be like, hey, babe, I'm sorry for saying XYZ or doing XYZ. And then you're like, hey, yeah, it just didn't make me feel good. And then holy shit.
It's better.
We had a 5-minute conversation and I had a whole recharge moment in that 5-minute conversation.
And that's exactly my experience is I can picture sitting on the couch and you're finished working and you want to hang out. Like we're both finished working and you want to hang out, but I'm working on something, whatever it is. And it's something that like I'm not even working on with a clear mind because I'm so
you're just staying busy,
burnt out and right. And so I can't like, it's like I'm stimming on it, like fucking autistic stimming on whatever it is that I have to finish and like have to psycho. And I think that's an ADHD thing, but like you have to psycho hyper focus and finish before you can pay attention to literally anything else. And sometimes you would even just be like, hey babe, do you want me to order a pizza? And I'd be like, don't talk to me. Like I have to figure out whatever I'm doing.
That happens still to this day.
It does not.
It does, but there's a difference. I'm aware.
Yeah, well, and I think we have better communication that we can say, hey, I'm sorry, I'm hyper and I'm focused on this. Can I just finish this really quick? And then I'll pay
and if
attention to you.
I do need your attention, I say, hey, I just need 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And giving you a time.
I remember the day that you said that to me, that you said, hey, maybe it would work better if I asked for your time and gave you a time limit on it so that you didn't think I was coming to steal your time. 99% of the time,
I only require seconds.
Yeah.
Not minutes or hours.
Yeah.
Because my ADHD can't last minutes and hours or days.
Yeah.
But it's just being aware of it and knowing, am I actually doing something worth my time?
And that I think is the misconception about productivity and success is that we convince ourselves that everything is worth our time or anything that we
don't know the true measure of value in everything we're doing.
And I also think like for me personally, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, is that like I'm loyal to ideas and things that I'm doing.
Work ethic is what you're loyal to
a fault, because I think like, okay, I've already committed to this. I have to see it through until I die. And you're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to evolve. You're allowed to do different things. And it makes it so much more fun and enjoyable and relaxed what you're working on specifically, but also just your life as a whole, when you like let go of the reins a little bit and just kind of do what you feel like doing on a day-to-day basis. And if you feel like doing things, you do them. If you don't, you don't. And like, of course, you obviously have to have like a little bit of discipline. You know what I mean?
Just a wee bit.
But like for the most part, as long as you're consistent, and consistency doesn't, again, and here's another misconception, consistency doesn't mean exactly the same day in, day out until the day you die.
Now, if you could do that though, and it's good and it's bringing you success in whatever you're doing, obviously that's good.
Right, like brushing your teeth. You do that day in, day out.
Exactly,
you know?
But it's being aware, is it putting me on the right path to go where I want to be?
But I also will say that...
And you can take turns and still be on the right path.
But I will say even things like brushing your teeth, like you're supposed to do that morning and night, sometimes... we are drinking. Sometimes you're at a friend's house too late. Sometimes you stay somewhere that you don't have any of your stuff, and you don't like, I mean, come on, let's be honest. Not all of us have brushed our teeth twice a day, every single day since the day we were fucking born.
Right. So but do you get mad at yourself and beat yourself up?
But you do it most of the time is my point.
Yes.
And that's the consistency.
Yes. I would rather you put less time with way more intention than just satisfy this productivity measurement of being like, oh, I need to go to the gym for 2 hours today. Are you actually
and I can't leave until I finish the 2 hours.
Are you going to fucking work out for 2 hours?
Yes.
And you can't even convince yourself to go for 30 minutes on a regular basis, but you're going to tell yourself 2 hours?
Right.
Fuck out of here.
Because you saw it on a fucking TikTok or something?
20 minutes. If you're going to be intentional for 20 minutes, I'd rather you go for just 20 minutes a day than for fucking 10 times that amount.
Or 20 minutes today, and then inevitably you're going to have more energy another day, and maybe you do go for an hour or something like that.
But
that's what, like, last week, I felt like fucking shit. Like, I was resting it up. I mean, I never work from bed, but I worked from bed twice that week.
Twice, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't shower. I didn't, like, get up and change. I was just lazy, and I read my book a lot, and I didn't really do anything at all. And I was like fighting those inner voices a little bit, nothing compared to what I used to, because I feel like I've got such a good hold on it. But, I did hear her going like, hey, you're being lazy. Hey, you got to do more. Hey, you got to do more. And I think some steps that I've taken to unlearn this mindset is trusting, because it has happened without fail, inevitably, every single motherfucking time, that I always come back to wanting to take care of myself and being productive and doing all of the things that I want to do. So allowing those days, or even like a week of having that rest period, by Monday the next day, or maybe Tuesday the next day, I was up, I was showering, I was getting ready for the day, I was going to the gym, I was cleaning the house. And when I realize it in those moments too, like once I do start doing things again, consciously saying to myself, see, it always comes back. You took your rest and it's fine. You trust yourself that you're going to get back to the normal place that you want to be in. And I think that has really helped me start to unlearn that toxic productivity. Toxic positivity.
Did you do an inventory check on yourself the week prior to you doing what you did last week, sitting in bed, being lazy? And then have you thought about it now that week's over and we've actually finished another week? Have you thought about everything that led to that whole week of lazy? Because that is what most of us don't do.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You need to be aware of what got you there, what got you out of there. And it can't be the negative shit.
But it's the simple noticing without judgment. You just notice it without judging it.
You should never judge yourself. I mean, to some degree, yes, but there's got to be that inner child.
But it's not judgment. It's just the noticing, and that's the difference. It's like learning how to notice without fucking being a dick to yourself and judging yourself for it. Because if you say, okay, I noticed that this is what led me to be lazy for the week, like this is something that I think might have happened, you can of course like be aware of that for next time, right? Yeah. But there's going to be a next time, like being able to notice it and say, okay, like, cause like before I might've been like, okay, I noticed it, so I'm never going to make that mistake again.
That's 100% who you are.
Yeah.
100% who you are.
Where instead it's not about that. No. It's about, noticing it just to have the information to know yourself better. And maybe you do some things differently, but something else is going to happen that makes you
because we're all on this journey to be the best version of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And if you're not, I would recommend figuring out why you don't want to make yourself better. Mm-hmm. Like, we're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time.
Oh, wow.
Right? But
you're not wrong, low-key. Like, we're not here for a long time and we make ourselves fucking miserable for literally what? Like, just to die.
Which now feels like a long time.
Yeah. But, like, should just die. Like, it doesn't matter. So, like, we got to figure out how to have a good time, how to enjoy life.
I wanted you to say not judge yourself. Because, like, don't judge yourself. Like, I believe in trying to take care of your inner child. Your inner child is, to me, who keeps me happy. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, if he's satisfied, I'm satisfied.
Mm-hmm. Rest is doing something. We learned about that on an episode or two ago. If you are doing something, or if you are resting, you are doing something. You're recharging your battery. You're allowing yourself to have more mental clarity. And I think if it takes as long as it takes, if you have a year of rest, I think that's okay, because you are contributing to your success by allowing your cup to refill, because something obviously super depleted it. You have to get to know yourself better. You have to heal. If it takes 4 years, whatever it is, I think that's successful, because as long as you have the mentality of like, I'm resting because I want to make myself better, or that you're doing something itty bitty every single day, like noticing when the sky looks pretty, or you write some things down that you're grateful for, or just simply like getting up and showering and like having a morning routine or a night routine, something like that. Like that is success. And I think that's another big piece of unlearning the toxic productivity is redefining success and self-worth and figuring out what that looks like for you now in this new version of you that doesn't let yourself be a dick because you didn't work hard enough. Like maybe, you know, your version of success might have been when you did have that mentality.
Resting is when you're letting your body come to a state of relaxation and trying to process as little thoughts or trying to process minimal thoughts. Mm-hmm. Genuine rest. I like that description. Genuine rest. If you are doing a morning routine, you are taking...
That's resting. That's relaxing to me.
Okay. Well, then we're just going to...
Maybe it's not. Maybe one week I don't want to do my morning routine at all, and it does feel like work.
Correct. Basically, what I'm trying to get at is like if you're trying... And this is my interpretation of it. And
I'm not... say correct. Like, you know.
I'm agreeing with you.
I don't know. I didn't like it.
Okay.
Well, you're like, yeah, like instead of just agreeing with me, you're like, yeah, that's correct. Like as if you fucking know and I don't.
All I'm saying is I think rest is when you let your body come to a point of relaxation. You're letting your mind rest, you're letting your heart rest, you're letting your body rest, right? Your soul's resting. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying I'm agreeing to disagree that maybe your form of what rest is different. And I'm not trying to say that you can't rest for a year.
Exactly. Everybody's rest is different, is my point.
I just want, and this is my extreme personality, is I want to know how to always be more successful, but realizing...
Remember that Frank is at the beginning stages of unlearning toxic productivity, because that is literally what you're describing, dude. Like, what you're describing right now is... the toxic productivity, like feeling like rest has to be defined as something that you're still successful in, like you're still doing something.
But what I'm trying to say is that the ever-ending goal is how to balance those ebbs and flows of low energy, high energy, low energy, high energy, and how to utilize that. And if that means you need to have 3 rest days in a week to be the best version of yourself on those other 4 days, I think that is important.
The only other thing I would say outside of rest, because I feel like we're really harping on rest, is the setting internal boundaries and prioritizing joy and balance and incorporating the things that make you happy. Like, even if it takes scheduling that in at first. Like, I think when I first started unlearning toxic productivity, I had to actually, like, incorporate things that made me happy into it. Like, I literally had to, like, schedule, like, enjoy time with Frank or go on a walk or read my book. Like, I had to make sure that it happened. And then the more that I did it, the more I loved it and the more I prioritized it. And I realized that the whole world didn't collapse and I was fine. And I almost liked myself more because I was doing things in more of a balance compared to just like living in this state of like, fuck you, Sarah, but I'm going to work hard. So that means that I'm doing right by myself. And I think too, like that's the big thing that I really want to stress again is saying that this toxic productivity comes in the form of thinking that you are doing right by yourself. Like you fully have convinced yourself that this is health and this is right and this is wellness. And you know, by doing all of the things constantly all of the time, that you're doing something good for you in the long term. But it's the way it makes you feel. And if you feel like stressed out all the time, if you feel guilty all of the time, if you feel not good enough all of the time, that's when, you know, you have to really pay attention and start setting internal boundaries with yourself. Like, hey, I'm only going to work until 7 o'clock, or I'm only going to work 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, and all the rest of it, I'm not going to pick up the other stuff that I, you know, am being hyper about working on and focusing on. Or I'm only going to work out 5 days a week during the weekday, and then on the weekend I'll allow, like if that's something that, you know, overworks you or makes you feel stressed out, whatever it is for you, so that you set those internal boundaries with yourself and then can allow yourself to prioritize again, like joy and balance.
Right. Yeah, I'd agree with that 100%.
key takeaways from the entire thing is unlearning toxic productivity is a process, and it looks different for everyone, even people that you love and are close to, like you and I feel like we have a lot of our, like you had said earlier, like our values and our morals align, but the way that we think about things and approach life a lot of the time are extremely different. And so that's why I like to have you on the show, because I think that, you know, obviously not everybody thinks like me, and just because people don't think the same exact way that you do doesn't mean that the way that they're thinking is wrong. And you just have to learn what works for you. But taking like that idea and knowing that when you watch people on the internet, or you follow people's podcasts, or you listen to self-help books, that you have to take everybody's advice with a grain of salt and then apply things that work for you, and, you know, do what you think is best, and mold it into your life and how you perceive things and the things that make you feel good. It's the important thing is just starting to recognize the patterns and giving yourself permission to rest and recharge and prioritize what truly matters.
I say this to you a lot. Like, I function with structure, right? Like, I hated it. I would rebel against it as a child. But as I get older, I realize that I flourish with structure. Like, that's why I was who I was as a child. Like, I was successful with sports. I was successful with my education. I was successful with the jobs I had when I was younger. But it's because there was so much fucking structure. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, like, this is one of those episodes that, like, there's no resolute. Like, this is an ongoing thing, because just as our feelings and emotions change.
Yeah, there's never a resolute. It's always
because
a
we're
constant
always evolving
practice.
too.
Right.
So this is going to be one of those things where genuinely we'll be able to come back to this and be like, man, that younger version of myself.
But I will say I am a lot happier now. I think that there is a resolute in the sense that when I did start implementing all of the things that we discussed today, I feel happy. I feel like I have control
You're less
over
confused,
my
right?
life. Well, I feel like I have control
Yeah.
over my life and myself and my feelings, and I'm not being reactive and driven by my emotions. I'm living how I want, and I think that that is, you know, getting me closer to my end goal way more than balls to the wall, work hard, toxic productivity had ever gotten.
So yeah, like, excuse me saying like confusion, but for me, that was
confusion's real, because I'd be like, why isn't it working?
Right, because I'd be like, I know what I'm doing.
Right.
It would create like this imposter syndrome when I would coach other teams. Like, these agency owners would be like, hey, I'll pay you X dollar amount to do XYZ. Cool. But then, like, I would come to my own day and be like, why the fuck is it not working? It's because I wouldn't do my own inventory check on myself being.
You know what I love about you? That you don't shut the fuck up. You literally talk so much. I love that about you, but I can't ask you kind of toxic, kind of, well, we can't play that game. We got to go.
I'll give you one-liners.
We can't play it.
Right now, go.
No, we can't go. We got to go.
Guys, she doesn't love me.
We
Go.
got to go to Jeff and Mark's.
What time is it?
It's 1:30. We were supposed to leave 10 minutes ago. They're going to kill us. I don't want to have anxiety. Look at me setting boundaries. Wait, I love you. Thank you for talking.
Bye, guys.
Frank literally just got up and left.
I love you, and thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Yep, sure thing, pal. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Wellish. I hope this conversation gave you some insight into how toxic productivity can show up in different areas of your life, from work and finances to wellness and social media. Remember, you don't have to live in constant go mode to live a fulfilling life. It's okay to rest. It's important to set boundaries with yourself. It's important to find the balance between joy and discipline. Slow down and let go of the pressure to be perfect. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. Your support helps us continue to explore the balance between realistic self-improvement and giving yourself grace. Whether it's unlearning toxic habits, navigating self-doubt, embracing your imperfect journey, I'm here to remind you that wellness is not about doing everything. It's about doing what works for you. Thank you so much again for listening, and I will talk to you guys next Monday on Wellish.